Hi, everyone.
And your Facebook Live, Donna.
Thank you. Here we go.
Welcome to the 2020.
Wait, hold on one second. Get a screen share first. Okay, here we go.
Welcome to the 2021 Traveling in a New Vegan World. My name is Margie Jordan, and I'll be your host for this event. Now, Traveling in a Vegan World was created by an amazing group of travel advisors and bloggers who wanted to showcase the best of the world to you and do it while traveling vegan. Grab your passports because over the next few days, we're going to visit some of our favorite destinations, including Europe, the UK, Asia, Canada, Central America, and the USA. We're going to be talking about the national parks, we're talking about cruises, and we're going to help you pick the right all-inclusive for your next vacation. It's going to be an incredible journey as we get you excited about traveling, enjoying the delicious vegan cuisine, and making an impact in local communities.
Thanks. Welcome.
Welcome, everyone. Hopefully you can all see me out there. We're so glad that you decided to join us today. Welcome to Traveling in a New Vegan World. So I want to kick off our start of our event with an introduction of who your speakers are today. So first and foremost, we are visiting Europe and the UK, and we have a wonderful group of speakers for you. So let me introduce them to you. We have Gretchen Sheridan. Gretchen is the co-owner of the Vegan Travel Club, started in 2013, and it is based in USA and Italy. She focuses on small groups of like-minded people who enjoy whole food and immersion into the local culture. So I'm a big culture girl, so I'm enjoying everything that Gretchen has to say today. We also have today John Rubin. John is the owner of Vegan World Travel, and he specializes in all-inclusive international adventures. They're designed specifically for vegans and the vegan curious. Now, he focuses on abundant regional plant-based cuisine, cruelty-free activities, and the most important thing, vetted animal sanctuary and shelter visits. And he creates these really unforgettable once-in-a-lifetime experiences. We have Wendy Warneth on the call with us today, and Wendy is truly the world traveler. Let me tell you, she has visited more than 100 countries, and she is the author of the book Veggie Planet, as well as the creator of the award-winning travel blog, The Nomadic Vegan. So she uncovers treasures across the globe so that you can be vegan anywhere and spread compassion everywhere. I love that. And then last but not least, we have Donna Zeigfinger. And Donna is also going to be your moderator today. She is the owner of Green Earth Travel, LLC. It was founded in 1997 as the nation's premier vegetarian, eco travel agency. She remains on the cutting edge of destinations and conscious, offering a wide range of options for those who care about the planet. And I know you guys do. So Donna will be your moderator today, and her agency focuses on volunteer vacations and adventure travel. So I hope you enjoy the group of panelists today. They're absolutely amazing. And I hope you enjoy all of the tips, the travel, and the content that they share with you. So I'm going to turn it right over to Donna.
Thank you, Margie. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. That was wonderful. Before we get started, I want to do a little housekeeping here. Please mute yourself, everyone, so we don't have any interruptions. And if you have any questions, please post in the chat box. And questions will be answered at the end of the session. And this will be recorded so you can watch later, and we'll also have access in the Facebook group. And I'll put the Facebook link in there later in case you haven't joined. And with that, I'm going to introduce you to Gretchen of Tierno Tours.
Thank you, Donna. Okay, hello everyone. I'm Gretchen Sheridan from Tierno Tours and the Vegan Travel Club. And today I'm really glad to be part of this group. And I'm really glad to be able to speak today about travel. So at one point or another, everyone on the globe has been in some kind of lockdown. And now with the announcements of all these vaccines that are coming out, there's a really positive energy all across Europe and the UK to reopen. Here in, I am based in southern Italy. I'm 1 hour south of the Amalfi Coast, where I've lived for the past 20 years. And we were very fortunate this summer to be open to tourism from July 1st to, let's say, the first week of October. So we got a really good glimpse of what it's going to be like for the reopening. So that's really what I want to talk to you about today, is how does travel look in the future? And how I want to talk about that is, what are the trends going to be for the next few years? What's it look like to take a European vacation now? And what we did this summer, my personal vacation, so that you can get an idea of what it looks like. So here you'll see in the pictures, this first slide is where I live. This is 1 hour south of the Amalfi Coast. And I think the trends for the future are going to be, instead of big groups, smaller groups, instead of joining groups, making your own groups. So smaller travels together, such as 6, 8, 10, 12 people, maybe 16 people, taking family and friends, or interest groups, creating your own small group within that and traveling together. Staying in smaller locations like boutique hotels, like what we did this summer. We rented a villa, and that was just our family, 4 bedrooms. And there's a lot of those options all throughout Europe. So here, what we did is we took 30 days. We were 8 people. We left from Salerno and we went up north. We spent 1 week down at the beach. Everybody knows what a beach vacation is. It's the same as it was before. You rent it, you go down to the beach, get a little sun, and then we started to go up north. Our first stop was Bologna, Parma, and Modena. Modena is the home of balsamic vinegar, so we stocked up on that. And then we went to the Ferrari Museum. Now here, we're now in major cities. So we stayed in Modena overnight. We rented a small apartment. It was like 4 bedrooms.
Gretchen,
Right.
can you tell me when you want the next slide?
Okay, you can switch to the Ferrari slide. Next slide.
Next slide. Okay.
Okay, and then from so the Ferrari Museum. In the past, you could just go to the Ferrari Museum, buy a ticket, and go in. This year, you had to register in advance, pick a time spot, and they only allow a certain amount of people in at one time. So these are the small little things that you're going to have to face taking a vacation in Europe in the future. Then from Modena, we went up through the Dolomites. Next slide, please. Then from the Dolomites, we passed up through Switzerland, then went to Strasbourg, France. And that's the next slide. Now, what I really want to talk to you about is what's a classic European vacation. So eating outside is part of traveling through Europe. Those things haven't changed, and they're not going to change for us in the future. Outside dining has always been the rage throughout Europe. Here, this picture, we're in Strasbourg, and this is the canal that goes through. There's 2 canals that go through the center of Strasbourg. So we stayed in a small hotel. It might have 10 rooms tops. We rented a family room, so we're all in one room. And then along the canal, you see all these lights. That is all the dining areas. We had a beautiful dinner outside facing the water. And, so we didn't miss a beat on this vacation, even though we're in the middle of a world pandemic. And we didn't miss anything on this trip that we took. After we left Strasbourg, we drove up through Germany. We passed through the Black Forest, and then we went up to Hanover, Hamburg. And this next slide, Donna, please, this is Hamlin. Now, this is another thing I'd like to point out to everyone, is that people are going to be avoiding staying in large cities because there's just a lot of people. Now, there's so many great places that you can stay outside of major large cities. This is a little town in Germany called Hamlin, and it's the home of the Pied Piper. So they have this little Pied Piper walk, and that's where you see this little mouse they put in the sidewalk. And then the town hall has the Pied Piper theme that comes out every 2 hours, and it's played by music. It's a little bronze music box that's in the side of City Hall. And this other building here is the oldest building in downtown Hamlin, and it's all made out of wood. Now, it's been several things. It started off as a tavern, and then it turned into a full-scale hotel, and now it's a apartment with a shop underneath. But this is an example of staying outside of major cities and still having a full, fun vacation. And now we're going to leave Germany and go back into Italy again. This is another example. This is next slide, Donna. This is Treviso. So Treviso is 15 minutes outside of Venice. It has the same canals that Venice has running through the city. It's very small. There's no cars in downtown Treviso. So you can park your car in a parking garage, and then you just walk through the center of town. If you'd like to go in, so you can make this your hub for northern Italy, and then go see the Dolomites, go see Prosecco wine country, go see Romeo and Juliet in Verona. You can go to the arena in Verona and see a show, open air. It holds, I don't know, about 1,000 people, open air concert you can see. And then you can take a train from Treviso to downtown Venice in less than 12 minutes. So this is another example of how you can travel and not be in the center of a city or with heavy crowds of people. So let's continue with your options of where to stay. So we have a few more examples here. Next slide. You'll see this is a chalet in the Dolomites. So this is 4 bedrooms, and the whole downstairs is living area. This is another example where you can rent a place if you're into hiking. This is a picture of the wintertime, but in the summertime, the Dolomites are also beautiful and very friendly for moderate hikes and light hikes. And then you, the next slide, Donna. And our last option for where to stay, this is a castle. So there are so many options to rent the whole place and have the place to yourself. Obviously, the castle is for a lot of people. So let's say you were to plan a wedding or you want to do something like that and you have 20 people, this castle would be the ideal place for that. And it'd be all private and you wouldn't have to worry. Now, let's talk a little bit. I feel like vegan food through Europe is very easy. Can you move to the next slide, please? So where to eat? Again, outdoor dining is super popular. Rooftop dining, outdoor dining. I mean, it's endless, the options. And I think if you're going to be, there's so many new vegan product lines that have come out. So if you're going to rent a place that's self-catering, you're going to have grocery stores with, of course, you find all the fresh vegetables and all the fresh fruit and all the canned beans and things like that are readily available everywhere and easy to find, a high quality of that. But there's also some great vegan lines that have come out, well, pre-made sandwiches, vegan cheeses, vegan meats, all kinds of options like that. Besides the fact that all across Europe, almost everywhere there is a vegan option. Even if it's a non-vegan restaurant, they have a vegan option. And these are a few of the non-vegan restaurants that gave vegan options. Next slide, Donna. This is also a restaurant that was not vegan, that this was their wonderful vegan option. It was a chickpea, they called it a chickpea burger. It was delicious. This was actually on the Amalfi Coast. This is up north. Next slide, Donna. This is up north. This was a vegan restaurant that did a set course meal. You can find these all through Italy. They did 3 or 4 courses with wine, paired it with wine and dessert. And then lastly, my last point of today that I want to talk to you about is what to do. So there are so many great places to go that are off the beaten track. And now more than ever, we're going to get back to being outdoors. There are so many private villas with gardens that you can visit. If you move to the next slide, Donna, you can rent a boat for a few days and take a cruise. That's what the Mediterranean is all about. All through Italy, Spain, and Greece. Boats are readily available. You can rent them for 3 days, 5 days, 1 week, and have a beautiful vacation. And then lastly, all the hikes that there are to do through Europe. It is really from the easy walk is this picture from what I'm showing you here. This actually is probably one of the easiest hikes you'll ever do. This is Maratea, and it's the second largest Jesus in the world, the stone Jesus that they have here. And this takes maybe 20 minutes all flat to walk up to it and look at the spectacular views all around it. And there's very, very little people up here at any given time. So this is just an example of some of the things that you can do throughout Italy and Europe if you're planning a vacation in the next year and a half. And now I want to pass it to Wendy, who's going to take it more off the beaten track and the back roads of Portugal. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Gretchen. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, yeah, that is a great segue into what I'm going to be talking about Portugal, which is where I live. This has been my adopted home for the past 4 years or so now. I am based in Lisbon. Donna, can we just pull up the first slide of the Portugal session, which is, okay, here we come. And you can go to the next one, which is a shot of Lisbon, which is my beautiful adopted hometown. This is the Alfama district, and we have amazing vegan restaurants here and lots of vegan friendly restaurants as well. Also in Porto, if you go to the next slide, Porto is the second largest city in Portugal, and that also has some amazing vegan restaurants too. But that's not what I'm going to talk about today. I've written about both of those cities and other places in Portugal as well on my blog, The Nomadic Vegan. So at the end of the session, I'll leave some links in the chat so that you can find those specific articles that tell you about all of the best vegan eats in Lisbon and Porto, and some other places as well. But today what I wanted to focus on is how do you get out off the beaten track and out into nature in Portugal and do that as a vegan. So if you want to go to the next slide, Donna, I'm going to be talking about an experience that I had this past autumn where I walked the Portuguese route of the Camino de Santiago. If you haven't heard of the Camino, it is a medieval pilgrimage route that leads to a place called Santiago de Compostela in the northwest of Spain, which is where the remains of St. James are said to be kept in the cathedral there. And in recent decades, it's had a resurgence in popularity, not just among religious pilgrims, but also among people who might not be religious at all, but do it for various other reasons. And it's a fascinating way to experience a country really in depth, walking on foot from village to village and seeing parts of the country that you would normally never see when you're traveling in any other way. So this is what my husband and I did. If you go to the next slide, Donna, you can see us starting out on day one of our journey with our special Camino masks on. And this is actually right outside the front door of our apartment where we live in Lisbon. This is one of the reasons that we chose this route. We've actually been walking the Camino for several years now. There are many different routes that starts in different parts of Europe and all finish in Santiago. So we've done a different route every year for the past 4 years since 2017. And in 2020, when, like Gretchen was saying, Europe was pretty open and things were still pretty good here during the summer and into the beginning of the autumn, and cases numbers were quite low in Portugal. So we were able to walk, but we still tried to, stay close to home and avoid public transport. And so we did that by actually just walking straight out of our front door and walking all the way to Santiago. So this was more than 600 kilometers and it took us 32 days. So I'm going to show you a little bit about what we saw and also mostly what we ate along the way and how you can do this as a vegan. I have to say that traditional Portuguese cuisine is not very vegan friendly, unfortunately. Most of the main dishes will feature either meat or fish, but I never let that stop me from going anywhere. My motto, as Margie said earlier, is that you can be vegan anywhere and spread compassion everywhere. So I'm going to show you how we were able to do that in rural Portugal. So if we go to the next slide, our usual breakfast was these cookies or digestive biscuits, which are accidentally vegan. And there are a couple of brands that make several different flavors of these. This brand is Bouillon. There's another brand that's called Vital Day. And these are really common. You can find them in pretty much any grocery store here in Portugal. If we go to the next slide, for lunch, we would usually self-cater as well and prepare our own lunches. That worked out really well for us because it meant that we could stop whenever we felt like it, and we didn't have to wait until we arrived at the next village and, you know, try to figure out what options might or might not be available there. So we did do some planning and to check out what supermarkets were going to be along the way and where we should stock up, because some supermarkets are definitely better than others in Portugal when it comes to having vegan options. Lidl was the best in terms of having ready to eat takeaway vegan food. So this was a very typical lunch from Lidl that we would eat, which was hummus and tabbouleh. Sometimes we would get a can of chickpeas and add some more chickpeas onto the tabbouleh, or you know, they have some other salads and things that you can take away as well. If we go to the next slide, another very typical lunch for us would be sandwiches that we would make along the way, and we would fill them just with whatever we could find, but typically tomatoes, avocado, hopefully hummus. It's not always available, but we would try to find some kind of spread, and we did actually carry a few lightweight packets of veg pate, and that would be kind of our backup spread for the days when we couldn't find any hummus. And of course, we did have plenty of snacks along the way as well. The next slide is one of my favorite accidentally vegan snacks in Portugal, which is called fava frita, and it's just fried fava beans. So you can find this in the same place where you would find nuts and dried fruits and things like that. It's really high in protein, it's really easy to carry, and also super widely available in Portugal. So that's one of the accidentally vegan foods, but sometimes we did find things that were not accidentally vegan. They were actually very specifically made for vegans, and we found them in the most unlikely places. So the next slide is a photo of an ice cream bar, a vegan ice cream bar that we found in a tiny village called Rabassal. There are about 300 people that live in this village. It just has one tiny mini market. So we went in there to see if we could buy a bag of chips or something, absolutely no expectations. And it turned out that they had vegan ice cream bars. So vegan products definitely are becoming more widespread in Portugal, even though we do still have a long way to go before we catch up to the UK, for example, which John is going to talk about a bit later. And then we would also sometimes forage for our own food. If you go to the next slide, you can see me holding a handful of figs that we picked along the way. We were walking in September, so it was fig season here in Portugal, and there were wild fig trees everywhere, and the fruit was just falling and, you know, rotting on the floor. So yeah, we picked up quite a few figs, and now every time I think of a fig, I'm going to think about the Camino because it was a big part of our experience. And then finally for dinner, if we go to the next slide, you can see a typical dinner that we would get at a local restaurant. And in this case, we wouldn't self-cater for dinner most of the time. We would typically, like I said, self-cater for breakfast and for lunch. But then for dinner, we would eat either in a local restaurant or in an albergue. Albergues are like hostels, but they're not youth hostels. They are specifically for pilgrims, for the people who are walking the Camino de Santiago. And so here in this case, this meal was at a restaurant. And like I said, traditional Portuguese cuisine is not very vegan friendly. So most times you won't see any vegan option. You definitely won't see a marked vegan option on the menu, and you probably won't see any accidentally vegan options on the menu either. But don't be afraid to ask. That's my biggest piece of advice, because Portuguese people are very friendly and kind and willing to help. Just let them know what it is that you do and don't eat. And they almost all the time will have things like rice and vegetables and beans or chickpeas or perhaps some other legumes, and they can, you know, create a plate with those kinds of things for you. So that's what you see here. If you go to the next slide, this was a meal that we had in an albergue. So like I said, some albergues will have a communal dinner that they will prepare for all of the pilgrims who are staying there that night. And in those cases, when we stayed in albergues that did have a communal dinner, they were always willing to accommodate us as well. They're actually more accustomed to getting these kinds of requests because most of the people who stay there are foreigners. So, you know, they're more exposed to different kinds of eating. So this was, again, was pretty typical. It was some black-eyed peas, some local, some couscous, and some salad. And then if we go to the next slide, there are a few local dishes in Portuguese cuisine that are already vegan or can pretty easily be veganized. So here's one example of migas, which there's a few different varieties of migas. It's made in different ways in different places, but this one is with local greens and black-eyed peas and breadcrumbs. If we go to the next slide, another one is cataplana, which is normally made with seafood, but it doesn't have to be with seafood. You can put whatever you want in a cataplana, because cataplana is actually just the name of the receptacle, this metal dish that you see that the food is cooked inside. That's the cataplana. So you can ask them to make a cataplana just with vegetables, maybe chickpeas or something like that if they have it, and it's really delicious. And sometimes you will find restaurant owners and other hospitality staff who are very aware of veganism and do actually make a real effort to cater to vegans. So in the next slide is a great example of this. This was a local restaurant in a town called São João da Madeira. It's not a touristy town at all. Tourists don't go there apart from the, like I said, the pilgrims who pass through. But this restaurant owner really made a special effort to add some vegan options to his menu. So this is a francesinha, a typical Portuguese dish, which normally is not vegan at all. It's stuffed with a bunch of different meats, melted cheese on top. Often there's an egg on top as well. But this one was actually made with vegan cheese and with either mushrooms or different types of vegan meats on the inside if you wanted. So there were some really nice surprises like that along the way. And just one more of those surprises I wanted to share in the next slide. This was in an albergue that we stayed in called Heartway Pilgrim House. And I happened to mention to the owner of the albergue that it was my veganiversary. That day that we stayed there is the day that I was celebrating my 6 years of being vegan. So in the morning when I woke up, she had breakfast prepared for us on the table, and I had this present waiting for me, which was actually brownies. She had made vegan brownies so that I could celebrate my veganiversary, which I was really touched by. And just one more photo of food that we ate along the Camino. This is once we arrived in Santiago. So Santiago is in Galicia and a part of Spain where unfortunately seafood and octopus in particular is known as being a local specialty. But this is a local specialty dish called polvo a feira, which is normally made with octopus, but in this case it was made with mushrooms. And we had this at a vegan restaurant in Santiago called Entre Pedras, which is my favorite place to eat in Santiago. We go there every time we walk the Camino. And so just another example of how you don't have to miss out on local specialties, which is something that a lot of people are afraid of about trying to travel as a vegan, that you won't be able to taste these local dishes. Absolutely not true. You can get them in vegan versions. They're becoming more and more available. So that's what I wanted to show you about the Camino. Now, I know that not everyone has 32 days available to walk across the whole country. So in that case, there are plenty of other options for hiking and getting out into nature. And another place that I recommend is called Sintra. So if we go to the next slide, Sintra, this is full of beautiful palaces like this one. This one is the Pena Palace. And it's up in the mountains just outside of Lisbon. It's about a 40-minute train ride from Lisbon. So you can even do it as a day trip. And this was kind of the summer retreat escape of the royal family. When it got too hot down in the city in the summer, then they would go up to the mountains, and this is where they built their palaces and chalets. So there's some beautiful buildings to visit, but also beautiful nature as well. In the next slide, you can see the Moorish castle, which is a much older castle. And here you can see how everything is really surrounded by greenery and, by mountains full of lush trees. And you have, beautiful view. In the next slide, an aerial view looking down onto the center of the town of Sintra from one of these mountain viewpoints. So there are lots of great trails around there. I definitely recommend it if you want kind of a shorter hiking and nature experience. And there's some vegan food in Sintra too. So that wasn't always the case. Actually, when I was preparing my very first vegan group trip to Portugal a few years ago with Veg Johnson Journeys, we were thinking that we might have to bring some packed lunches from Lisbon. But in the end, we didn't have to do that because there was a vegan restaurant that opened. In the next slide, you'll see a plate from Bosque, which is the very first vegan restaurant to open in Sintra. As you can see, it's pretty simple food. It's very much, home cooking, and it has a very homey atmosphere. It really feels like going to eat at your grandmother's house. But I really love it for that reason. And we've had some more options that have opened up since then as well. And the next one, you can see one more, which is called A Praça. And this is a vegetarian restaurant that's right in the center of town. So it's really convenient. And they always have vegan options available there too. And there are also some great vegan-friendly accommodations and activities around this area. So in the final slide, you will see a cooking class that one of the groups that I led in Portugal, we participated in this cooking class in a little village called Azoia. And so this is an organic farm that's run by a woman who is vegetarian, and she offers all kinds of cooking classes. And she also runs a B&B on her site, on her farm. So if you're traveling independently, then this is a really great place to stay. It's called Terra Zoia. So yeah, there are lots of opportunities. Like I said, to be honest, Portugal, the main cities are very vegan friendly, but in the rural areas, the traditional food is not so vegan friendly, but you can definitely make it work. And we proved that by walking all the way across the country, 600 kilometers, and we never had to go hungry the whole time. In fact, we had some really amazing vegan food.
Great, thank you. That was wonderful. I'm getting hungry just watching all this. Next up, we have John. John, are you there? Can you unmute yourself?
I can.
Okay, great.
I think I need to go and get something to eat before I start. Wendy, that was very appetizing. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. My name's John Rubin. I'm from the veganworld.com. We're a tour operator based in the south of England. I've been vegan for 13 years, and I've been in the travel business for 33 years. Today, I'm going to tell you about my favorite city, Brighton, which is located on the south coast of England, a couple of hours drive, or an hour on the train due south from London. For those travellers arriving by air, our international airport is Gatwick, which is only 30 minutes away by regular direct train. It's renowned as the vegan capital of the UK, and we have more meat-free restaurants per head than any other city or town in the UK. Donna, do you want to just scroll down to the food now? And then we'll come back to the, yeah, there we go. Thanks. We'll come back to the scenery in a little bit. Thank you. So yeah, Brighton's renowned as the vegan capital of the UK, and we've more meat-free restaurants per head than any other city or town in the UK. Currently on Happy Cow, there are 22 vegan-only restaurants. Now, I'm not just talking vegan-friendly or vegetarian. There are 22 vegan restaurants in Brighton, only serving vegan food. We have two pubs in Brighton, the Round Hill, which is my background as I speak. So we have the Round Hill and the Hope and Ruin that are fully vegan, including drinks. So they only serve vegan food and vegan drinks, which is highly unusual for a pub, especially when you consider that most of our traditional ales are filtered through fish guts to make the liquid clear. This is actually a little known fact about beer in the UK and Ireland. And actually Guinness only became vegan 3 years ago. The people from the Round Hill pub also opened a vegan cafe in the nearby town of Lewes. And their Brighton pub actually won Best Roast Dinner in Brighton, which is amazing, really, when you consider how many meaty restaurants serve meat roast dinners in town. Another proud award winner is Purezza. This is a vegan pizza restaurant. They've got 2 branches in the Brighton area. And they won a top prize at the World Pizza Championships. and they also won the National UK Pizza of the Year in 2018. So again, bear in mind, this isn't just for vegan food. This is like including meat and vegetarian stuff. It's just amazing food there. Another proud winner from Brighton is What the Pitta, which is a vegan kebab restaurant, and they won Kebab of the Year a couple of years ago. So we've got a great choice, and the centre of Brighton is really easy to walk around. I'd say that probably of the 22 vegan restaurants, that 20 of them are within a 15-minute walking radius. Like most cities, the majority of Brighton's vegan restaurants specialise in junk food. You know, like I've mentioned, we've had kebabs, pizzas, there's burgers, hot dogs, veganised traditional English breakfasts, and vegan chicken. But there's a couple of new places that have opened up recently with amazing salads and proper healthy cooking and stir fries. The place that started it all off is one of my favorite places anywhere in the world. It's called the Cowley Club. Everything is vegan here, but it's not a pub or a restaurant. The Cowley Club is a volunteer-run social centre, and it houses a cafe and a bookshop during the day, and a members bar during the evenings. They have small gigs there for local bands. There's a capacity of about 100 people, and it's run by volunteers. It's a non-for-profit organisation, and everyone is made to feel welcome. They make a special point of welcoming refugees and immigrants, and there's a great LGBT hive of activity there. It really is for everybody there. It's started by a very inspirational local guy called Harry Cowley, who was involved in grassroots social activism.
Hi, sweetie, I'm plugged in.
Okay.
So this guy, Harry Cowley, was involved in grassroots social activism from the 1920s until he died in the 70s. He helped organize the unemployed. He moved homeless families after the World Wars, and he was a key figure in confronting the fascism in the 1930s. This Cowley Club's in the London Road area, just north of the city centre, where there are 3 fantastic vegan cafes and a couple of vegan-friendly breweries making some fantastic beers. Which reminds me, Brighton has the only Green Party member of Parliament in the whole country. And we voted this lady in for 2 elections. So not only is there a great vegan scene in Brighton, but there's a great consciousness of the environment and the planet. It's a very liberal city and hosts the UK's largest gay pride event annually. We have the famous Brighton lanes, which are mazy pedestrianised streets with independent shops, bars, cafes and restaurants. It's a great place to wander around and do plenty of window shopping with a nut milk latte in hand. We've also got the famous Brighton Pier, which juts out into the sea. It's 525 metres long. There's all sorts of tourist traps here. You've got kids' fun fair rides, junk food, but the best news is that a vegan cafe opened up on the pier a couple of years ago. I haven't visited it yet, but once we're allowed out again, it'll be one of my first stops. Brighton Beach is huge. It's so wide, but it is not sandy. It's very stony and very uncomfortable to sit or lie on unless you bring a chair. It gets very crowded in summer, but it's a good place to sit and enjoy some vegan sushi from the Happy Mackie restaurant, which is just a couple of minutes from the beach. Brighton's so vegan that we even have our own vegan shoe shop. Yeah, we've got Vegetarian Shoes, which is a shop in the lanes where all the shoes, the belts, the coats, the accessories are all vegan. The shoes are top quality, but I mean, it's not cheap. It's not cheap. You can't buy a pair of shoes for £20 there, but you can get running shoes, casual shoes, walking shoes, posh shoes, you name it. It's all in Vegetarian Shoes. We've also got 2 vegan supermarkets in the town. I always spend too much money in there when I'm let loose. But Brighton isn't all about eating and shopping though. Just north of the city, you'll find the beautiful South Downs. It's one of our largest national parks, and it's really easy to find yourself in the middle of nowhere just 15 minutes after leaving the city. It's a really hilly area, protects the city from a lot of nasty weather coming from the north, making Brighton one of the UK's sunniest places. There are some amazing walks and views in the South Downs. You can see the pictures here. It's perfect for walking off the calories that you've gained in the city's great vegan restaurants. Along the coast, if we stop there, Donna, that's perfect timing. We've got the famous Seven Sisters, which are also situated in the South Downs National Park. The Seven Sisters Country Park is made up of 280 hectares of chalk cliffs, meandering river valley and open chalk grassland. It's a great place for a number of outdoor activities, which include walking, bird watching, cycling, canoeing and paddleboarding. In the city centre, you'll find the Brighton Pavilion, which is an amazing exotic palace right in the centre. It's got a colourful history. It was built as a seaside pleasure palace for King George IV. And the historic house mixes Regency grandeur with the visual style of India and China. There's a definite resemblance to famous palaces of the East. The only thing Brighton lacks, I'd say, is a vegan hotel. For our tour to Brighton in September that we're running, we're using a 4-star hotel located near the station and in the hub of things. There's dozens of bed and breakfast establishments in converted Victorian and Edwardian townhouses in the city. But as yet, we don't have a vegan or even an eco-friendly property to push. I guess I'll just have to work a little bit harder and then I can buy one and start one. There's also great nightlife in Brighton. You've got pubs, clubs, bars of every type, and you'll never go hungry or thirsty, and you'll never be bored here. Any vegan traveling to the UK should come and visit my adopted city. I'd be delighted to point you in the right direction. And if I'm around, I'd love to show you around. We've got 3 animal sanctuaries within 30 minutes of central Brighton. I regularly help out at one of them. It's difficult to arrange visits currently, of course, but when hopefully this virus is gone soon, we can organise trips to see where and how the animals are cared for. Even away from Brighton, veganism is booming in the UK. 55% of Brits have eaten more vegan alternatives since the pandemic started. London, Bristol, Manchester and Edinburgh all have great vegan scenes, and it's rare to visit any sizable town without a plant-based restaurant or cafe now. And anywhere you go, you can get vegan food. It used to be when I first turned vegan, you went in somewhere and asked for a vegan meal and they'd laugh at you. You'd end up with chips and salad or risotto if you're lucky, but it's really all changed now. And over 500,000 people have signed up to Veganuary. That's an incredible figure. One of our biggest chains, Wagamama's, they've cut a load of meat dishes from their menu now and they've replaced them with vegan dishes. Half of their menu now is vegan. This is a place with 200 restaurants around the country. I'm convinced they will become eventually the first big restaurant chain in the UK to go fully plant-based. Deliveroo is an online food delivery service. In January, they saw a 153% rise in searches for vegan food in their app compared to December so far. The number of restaurants catering to vegans on Deliveroo has doubled in 12 months. I'm really proud to say that the UK is ahead of the world curve in recognizing that veganism is best for animal welfare, the planet, and for human health. Thank you.
Thank you. I am really getting hungry and it's not even, I just had breakfast. Anyway, I'm Donna Zeichfinger and I'm the owner of Green Earth Travel. And I'm going to give you the history of me and Ireland first before we talk, about things that I recommend for people. Ireland has come a long way to being vegan. Probably in the past 20 years, right? I think I first went to Ireland, it was around 1999 or 2000, and they were absolutely no vegan options, or very few, even in the big cities. Well, we didn't really go to any big cities back then. We were able to fly into Shannon and fly out of Shannon, so we didn't go to Dublin. But really, there was no vegan options unless you got a salad, and that was about it. And you couldn't even drink the Guinness back then. When we went there the first time, we were fortunate to stay at a bed and breakfast, which is actually the one that's pictured behind here. I don't know, you can see it over here. It's a place called Rocky View Farmhouse. We were fortunate to stay with them. It was in a sleepy town called Fanor, right outside of Doolin. And the owners were making not only breakfast, but they would make dinner. And she knew exactly what to do for vegans. So I felt really lucky. And when she made her breakfast, it was enough that we could carry it with us for lunch the next day. It was fabulous. I think back then there was maybe one restaurant in Galway. Again, I didn't go to Dublin back then, so I didn't know, but there was one vegetarian restaurant in Galway and a health food store, and that was it. And I would just stock up and just, take what I could get. But the next time we went there was about, and I need to do my slides as well. Let me back up here a second. So we started in Shannon, which is like down this area, and we went over to the Cliffs of Moher, and that's in Fanor is right around there. A little time, I don't know if you can see my pointer or not, but it's that little pointed area right above the Cliffs of Moher. So that's where we would stay. In fact, that's where we usually stay when my husband and I go over there now. So the next time I went was about 2 years later or 3 years later, and it was a little more accommodating. Like they had veggie burgers, but I wasn't even sure how vegan they were. But just the fact that they had them was pretty impressive back in whatever it was 2003. And then around 2009, you could see the switch starting to happen. There were more vegan options, but it was still pretty bleak, but it was a lot healthier than it was, in years past. And then when I returned 9 years later, and I was there with Gretchen, actually, the place was booming with vegan options. They were everywhere. There was even a vegan walking tour, which I don't know if they're still in existence or not. I know that she was looking to sell a few years ago, and now with the pandemic, they're probably not. But there was a lovely vegan walking tour of Dublin. And let's see if I have, whoops, we got the food right here. This was a couple of the restaurants we went to. One was Blazing Salads, which was on the left, and the other one was Cornucopia, and these were both in Dublin. And then they even had Guinness, which, how could you not go to Ireland, right? You have to go to Ireland and have Guinness. So we were able to drink our Guinness and our whiskey or whatever. I don't drink a lot, so let's get that straight right now. I don't normally drink a lot, but there I'm going to have a Guinness. Again, in 2019, when I went back, Burger King, which I know is not a lot of people's favorites, but they had the Impossible Burger before we did in the States. And they were everywhere. It was everywhere. I mean, there were vegan options in almost every restaurant, especially in the larger cities. And if they didn't have vegan options, they were kind of frowned upon with us, to be honest. But where do I travel when I go there? And I can, I'm going to back this up. So again, we typically, when I send people to Ireland, I typically have them fly in Dublin. We used to have them fly into Shannon, but Shannon is a little bit tougher these days. They don't have as many nonstops, but it is an easier airport to fly into because you're not in this big city. So I typically now will have people fly into Dublin and then head west for if it's a first time. I can do the Northern Ireland next time. It's fascinating there, but I'm going to focus on the South and the West right now. So, you know, what I would tell people is all you need is 1 to 2 nights in Dublin. Just, you know, and it also, you can leave that morning if you don't want to stay in a big city, you want to head out into the outside world. And, you know, it just is going to depend on when you arrive and how tired you're going to be. So again, I showed you the blazing salads and cornucopia, both were fabulous. We also had, let me see if I can find it in here. Vegan tea. I don't think I put it in here. You know, that was one of the pictures I didn't put. All right. So I thought I had it in there. We had a vegan tea at in Dublin, that at the Dublin Castle, which was phenomenal. And I highly recommend it. I don't know, and Gretchen, you can tell me if they do that normally, or if that was just for our group. You can put it in the chat box if you want. So
Yeah, they do have vegan options at that cafe. It's actually in the museum.
in the museum, in the Dublin Castle.
They do have vegan options. We had a private room that day because we were 20 some people. They
Right.
don't do that. They don't have that whole section open all day vegan, but they do have the private. They do have just the regular vegan options. I would say 10% of their menu.
Right. It was fabulous though. I loved
Very
it.
good.
I mean,
It
it
was
was
very good.
really good. You couldn't, you know, I'm a sweets person to begin with. So, what to do in Dublin? There's a lot of fun things to do if you're going to just stay there for the day. Some of the fun things were the Dublin Castle, St. Stephen's Green, but what I really liked, and it was like totally surprising and off the guard, was the Irish Rock and Roll Museum. I'm a music freak, so that's part of what I liked. They have, you know, you can see Thin Lizzy. I don't know if you guys remember the band Thin Lizzy, but they're an Irish band, and everyone from Thin Lizzy to the Rolling Stones and David Bowie have played there because it's not only a museum, but it's a small theater. So it was kind of fun to see all these, you know, little interesting pieces about these musicians. For most of the people that travel there for the first time, I, again, will send them to the West Coast. And then typically my favorite thing to do for them is to have them stay at bed and breakfast properties. One of the reasons is you get to know the people, you know, whereas in a hotel, it's a little more cold, you know, it's not as cozy. And the people at the B&Bs will tell you about places that you wouldn't normally go to if you were in a big hotel or in a big group. As far as vegan breakfast, I would say the majority of them love to do something different. You know, the places I've gone to will go over and above for you. As I said, they make breakfast so large that you take them for lunch, you know, in a brown bag. But you need to let them know ahead of time. You know, I have come across a few that wouldn't do vegan and I just kind of skip by them. But I know I'm also an Ireland certified Ireland specialist. As an Ireland specialist, I, you know, contact the B&Bs ahead of time for my clients and for myself, just to make sure so that they can go grocery shopping and have all the right foods for you. All right. So, another option is to book a townhouse in or a villa. And now this is not the villas here, but this is in a town called Adair. And they have a manor, and I wish I had posted the picture of the manor and more of the town because it's really a lovely little town with these thatched roofs. But they have a manor there, which has villas in them, and they're like 3-bedroom villas. So you can fit up to like 6, 7, 8 people in these villas and have kitchens so that you don't have to go out and eat at all, or you can just, you know, eat when you want to and not have to, you know, anyway, it's just a self-catering place. And they're great for family stays. So, and again, if you have a kitchen, you don't need to go out and eat all the time. I as far as transportation goes, I highly recommend that you get a car rental. I don't, unless you're going to be there for a month, the bus system really is not worth it. So I recommend people getting car rentals. And also with the car rentals, you can get into these little tiny towns that you can't with the bus systems or staying in a big city at a hotel. When you do that, you have to find your way there or take a tour there, a group tour. It's not as much fun. So I recommend doing a car rental, and I recommend that you pay a little bit more and get an automatic car, because I was trying to figure this out last night. So if you're in the US, the stick shift is on the right normally, right? But if you're in the UK, and this goes for John as well, in England, it's on the left. The stick shift is on, wait, yeah, that's right. It's on the left, because you're sitting on the other side of the car. And so to me, it's worth it just for the less stress to get an automatic. It might be a couple $100 more, but it's one less thing you have to worry about, because it is going to drive you crazy. I remember my husband driving the stick, and I would always, try and, because I was sitting on the car, what I thought was the car side, trying doing the stick. Don't do that. Just get an automatic. Also with Americans, and I think with Canadians, you have to get the car insurance. They make it almost impossible for you not to get the car insurance. Plus it's worth it, because they'll nickel and dime you those car rentals for every little dent that you have. Let's see if I can move on to the next slide here. So this is not in Doolin, but this is what a typical scenery in Doolin would like. This is my favorite town in Doolin. Let me see if I can find it here. No, I didn't put it in here. Sorry. All right, we'll go back to those in a moment. My favorite town in the country is Doolin, and I love that town so much that I named my cat Doolin back in 2005 when we brought a group of people, and there were mostly musicians there. And it also has some of the best music in the country. So you'll find that a lot of famous musicians will come and play in the pubs. They do it incognito. They just want to come and listen to music, or they want to jam out there. And so they will, have a lot of great music sessions there. And then in Doolin, you can walk to the Cliffs of Moher. And it's about a 2-hour, 1.5 hour hike, depending on how fast you are. And the Cliffs of Moher is a definite must do. There's some great walks to the Galway Bay, and you can also, that's when you walk to the Galway Bay, you can take a ferry to the Aran Islands. It depends on the weather, because you want to make sure that if they take you to the Aran Islands that day, that there's not a weather problem and you get stuck there overnight. So it just be flexible if you go to the Aran Islands, that you might get stuck there for a night, or you might start in Doolin, and because of weather problems, they'll drop you off in Galway and you have to take, transportation back. So just be very flexible about that. The last time, Ireland has just come a long way. The last time we were there were in Doolin, there were two very vegan friendly restaurants in this small town. I think one was called Cafe Doolin, and I think the other one was a pub. Doolin is, as I mentioned, very close to the Cliffs of Moher, and it's a must-see. There is also a chocolate place that Gretchen and I went to. We brought our group to, and it's called the Hazel Mountain Chocolate. In fact, I still have their tea. They have vegan chocolate, and they would have vegan, if I remember correctly, Gretchen, remind me of this, they had vegan chocolate baskets there for us. And I don't think it was just for us. I think this was something that they sold on a regular basis. And they also gave us a really nice little vegan lunch there. And at the website, if somebody wants to put it in the chat box, is hazelmountainchocolate.com. You can actually order online from them. They had some really good chocolates. If you love perfume, there's a little perfumery in the Burren area. It's called the Burren Perfumery. Name. Anyway, they have lunches there, and they do amazing vegan lunch, and you get to watch all how they make their perfumes, and all of their perfumes are cruelty free. So I know that some of the people are probably asking what the burn is. The burn, and this is all in the Doolin area. The Burren is a region of County Clare in the southwest of Ireland, and it's a harsh, very harsh landscape. It's all rocky. It's a beach area, but it's what John was talking about, where it's rocky. It's not something where you can just sit around and, it's not white sandy beach, but it's absolutely amazing. It's full of cliffs and caves and fossils and rock formations and archaeological sites. It's on the Atlantic coast. It's home to thousands of seabirds, including puffins. And the last stop I'm going to talk about was probably one of my favorite things to do. It's a city called Cork. You can set this as a main place to stay and do day trips for them there. Same thing as Doolin. I actually recommend that you do the same with Doolin if you just want to not travel around a lot. You can do everything from the Blarney Stone Castle, which I don't recommend people kiss the stone because, well, you wouldn't want to kiss the stone now because of the virus, but I would never recommend people kissing the stone because it's gross. I went to see the Blarney Stone at Castle, and it's beautiful and the grounds are beautiful, but you couldn't pay me to kiss that stone. They have you you're upside down, kissing the stone 2 stories up. Not a good idea, but go see the grounds. All right. So the Titanic experience in Cobb was another experience another thing that we did. And that shows you, actually, I have a photo of that. Let me go. Here it is. There's the Titanic in Cork, and that's the actual pier right there. Dingle Peninsula, which I'll back up now. This little doggy here is from the Dingle Peninsula. It's a really quaint city. Where am I here? Okay, it's got some amazing scenery and hiking. They've got this crazy museum that it's called the Celtic and Prehistoric Museum. It's a very small place. My guess is it's not open right now, but I'm hoping it'll be open later this year. And by the way, the Dingle Peninsula is totally closed right now. I just read about it yesterday. So hopefully this summer it'll be open. But this museum has everything from prehistoric dinosaur bones to Celtic art. And it's just like all in this one little spot. It's just one of these places that you can find off the beaten track just by driving around. There's all these kinds of places down there. But the Dingle Peninsula is also called, we're going to have to wrap it up in a moment. The Dingle Peninsula is also called the part of the Wild Atlantic Way. But the best thing on this trip is the donkey sanctuary. And I'm going to show you this right now. This is my favorite part. This is my adopted girl, Julianne. And you could see how happy she is on the right to see me, right? She was one of the few donkeys that was actually born at the sanctuary, so she's never seen any kind of cruelty in her life. The majority of them are rescues, and they have seen some really horrific things, but they're really well taken care of. I don't know if you can volunteer while you're there, but it's certainly something that you can look into. I went to Ireland 20 years ago. I found this flyer and I decided that next time I go to Ireland, I'm going there. And that's what happened. And I go there every time. They have, at any given time, they have over 700 donkeys and mules. And they are just, to me, the cutest. I've fallen in love with donkeys. They're the cutest things on the planet. And they're so sweet. So I fell in love with the place so much. I adopted this little girl. This is my 2nd year that I have her now. Not in my house, I wish. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, but just on a side note, in Ireland, as far as currency goes, the Republic of Ireland takes euros. I know it gets kind of confusing. In Northern Ireland, they take British pounds, and you only need a passport. And so why not try Ireland when you're ready? They are waiting for you. And with that, if we have any questions. Jason, do we have any questions in here?
We had a couple. One was for Gretchen in regards to gluten-free options in Italy, and maybe everybody could let us know if they are aware of any gluten-free or other dietary needs in Europe.
Okay, so gluten-free, there are a ton of options. First of all throughout Italy, they are obsessed with food. So if you walk into any restaurant at any time, you're going to find the most spotless kitchen you've ever found, because they are crazy when it comes to food. And so for gluten-free, okay, so if you're a celiac, what they do is they have their own sets of pots and pans that they cook for all the gluten-free people. So on every menu and almost everywhere you go, they know what gluten-free is, and they have a separate set of pots and pans that they cook with them. So they're highly professional when it comes to food. And there are whole lines of pasta that are gluten-free. They have a rice pasta as well. The rice pasta is okay, but they also have other flours that they use that don't have any gluten in them that are even better than the rice flour. It's quite good. You have no problem.
And John, how about Brighton?
Yeah, same. If you go into some non-vegan restaurants, you say, "Oh, have you got anything vegan?" They'll say, "Yeah, we've got lots of gluten-free as well." They automatically think if you're vegan, you're gluten-free. But yeah, there's a lot of celiacs in the UK, so it's not a problem to get gluten-free in Brighton and most places as well. It really is not a problem.
And Donna, I'm assuming Ireland's the same?
Yeah, I'm not a gluten-free person, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be a problem. You just have to request it. They've just come up so long, with everything, with all types of food accommodations. I don't think it'll be a major problem.
And like John said, most people consider all vegans are gluten-free already. So it's usually if they're accommodating vegans, they can accommodate gluten. We had another question in regards to traveling and finding groceries. Somebody said, when I've traveled, I've often gone to groceries, but how do you manage verifying something is vegan when you can't speak or read the language?
I can answer that if you like.
Great.
And then maybe Gretchen, actually Wendy too, but I use an app. I use the the Happy Cow app is good, but there is an app called, it's a language app, and you can actually speak into it. And I'll try and find it and post it on the Facebook chat. It's you speak into it and it says back to you what you're meaning to say. Now, whether that translates well is a different story, but it can at least help you get by.
What I do when I travel is I always make sure I learn what the local lingo is for milk, eggs, lactose, and then I know that when I pick something up in a supermarket, I read the ingredients. So
yeah, I have a few things. Sorry, did you have more to say, John?
No, go ahead, Wendy.
Yeah, I have a few things to say about this because I'm a big language geek. So I actually recorded a podcast episode recently with Bryety. I don't know if Bryety is still on here. If she is, maybe she wants to weigh in. I know that she did join us at the beginning. Bryety Reed, who is going to be presenting in another session, in the Asia session. She has a podcast, the World Vegan Travel Podcast, and she and I talked all about learning languages and lots of language related tips in her podcast that was just released a couple days ago, the World Vegan Travel Podcast. So maybe I'll direct you there. But yeah, I would also say translation apps can be good. It varies a lot depending on the language. So it works pretty well, I'd say, for Romance languages, for languages that are fairly close to English. If you're going English to French or English to Spanish, that works pretty well. If you're going English to Japanese or English to Chinese, it works a lot less well. And, you can end up saying some pretty wacky things that you didn't intend to say. But yeah, like you, John, I also highly recommend trying to learn a few of those keywords. in the local language. Also, speaking specifically about Europe, almost always on the packaging, any allergen will be marked in bold in the ingredients label. So that's kind of a shortcut. You can just look for, in most cases, just look for the items that are in bold. And if, for example, if it's egg or milk or any other kind of milk related product or seafood, that's going to show up in bold. Obviously, there are some exceptions that wouldn't show up in bold, which would be lard, for example, or some other kind of meat related something. But generally, if it's like a pack of cookies or a pack of crisps where you think there might be milk in it, then yeah, the bold thing can be an easy shortcut. And lots of things are specifically labeled as vegan now, with an official symbol, the little V symbol that shows that they are vegan. So it is getting easier and easier to identify things. Another kind of app that you can use is the Google Translate app with the OCR, which you can actually hold it up to, say, a menu or an ingredients label on a package, and it will translate it for you right in front of your eyes. So, literally what you'll look through, what you see when you look at the camera will turn into English, and again, it'll be an automatic translation. It's not going to be perfect, but a lot of times that can help you identify whether something is vegan or not, either on a menu or on packaging in a supermarket. And I'm going to be doing a whole series of blog posts about useful words and phrases for vegans traveling in different parts of the world. I've just posted the first one, which is Chinese. So if you happen to be going to a Chinese speaking place, then definitely look on the nomadicvegan.com, and the most recent blog post there is those useful Chinese words and phrases. And I do have posts planned for European languages as well, for Italian and French and Spanish.
That's great. John, you have a couple of questions here. James is asking if you notice much regional variation in terms of vegan availability in the UK. His wife is from Darlington and his sister-in-law lives in Marlow, Bucks. Wondering if he believes vegan options seems a lot more limited in the Northeast.
Yeah, I'd agree, James. Without being regionalist, there's a lot of working class places up in the north of England, Darlington. Yeah. I think if you're from Darlington, the nearest places to go for decent vegan options would be Newcastle or Durham City. I think you'd have to stick to the big chain restaurants to get vegan stuff in Darlington. Marlow, certainly, it's a lot further south. It's a very affluent place, Marlow. So yeah, you won't have any problems getting vegan options in Marlow. But yeah, it's definitely it's definitely a thing. It's more macho up north. People wouldn't like to admit that they're vegan, perhaps. So yeah, there's definitely a regional difference in getting vegan food for sure.
So there's another question, John, from Laura. Laura's wondering if you, in terms of staying in Brighton, she knows that you have mentioned there isn't many vegan hotels, but wondering, is it relatively available and easy to find homes, apartments to stay in for 1 or 2 week periods in Brighton, similar to Airbnbs, so they have access to a kitchen?
I guess it would probably be Airbnb, or there's a lot of local places in Brighton that are advertising apartments to stay, depending on the time of year, really. If you come in summer, it's going to be expensive because a lot of people from Britain come to Brighton for summer holidays, and especially over the weekends as well. People from London come down and from all over the south of England. So if you can avoid July and August, you'll save a bunch. A good time to go would be May or June, but make sure you avoid. There's some events going on just slightly off season in Brighton that you need to avoid. There's a massive music festival called The Great Escape. I guess that won't happen this year, but probably for 22 it'll happen again. There's the London to Brighton bike ride and the vintage car rallies. So yeah, you need to pick your time to come, but there are deals to be had. But yeah, there'll be plenty of places to rent, but it won't be cheap.
Great. We also had a question from Patricia. This one's probably a little more difficult to answer, but what is the average cost for a first-time visit to the UK?
Ooh,
I mean, I'm sure it can vary.
How long's a piece of string? Yeah, it depends when you come, where you go. In Brighton, I guess if you come midweek, you probably off season, you get a decent room for 70 a night with breakfast, £70. So depending where you are, if you're in America, you need to add 30% to that to get your equivalent in dollars. So what would you be looking at? About $100. Probably add 50% for a weekend stay. Elsewhere in Britain, it depends. If you want to come to Brighton, Brighton is expensive. There's no getting away from it because it's in demand. But there's other places in Britain that you'll pay half that. For example, Darlington.
That's great. We've had a comment just from one of our other presenters, part of the series, who says that Veg Visits is a great vegan, vegetarian alternative to Airbnb. Thank you, Brady, for that. And I think those are all the questions I have, Donna.
Yeah, I'm just jotting down the last notes of when the next event is going to be on Thursday at 7 p.m. this time, Eastern time, and it's going to be with Jason and Jennifer and myself, and we're going to be talking about traveling in Canada and the USA, and let's see. So Alan had asked about that. Look for it on the Facebook page. If you're not on the Facebook page, you can RSVP to the Eventbrite. We do have a message here from Laura saying respect to Jason for translating my very long-winded run-on question.
My pleasure.
So I'm just going to give you a rundown. So Thursday is going to be the Canada and USA. And then next Tuesday will be the cruising and all-inclusive resorts, and that will be with Jennifer and Jason. And then on the what date is the 21st will be Central America and the Caribbean, and that's going to be with Emma and Fata and myself. And let's see, then on January 26th will be Asia and luxury travel, which will be with Paul Ayers, Bridie, and Zach Lovas. And if anybody knows who Zach is, he is the owner of Veg Voyages, and they, with their focus on India, but they're doing some really amazing things in Asia as well. And so is Bridie as well. They all are. And then lastly, we're going to be doing a fun event, kind of a happy hour in the morning thing, but we're going to do like some games and stuff. It's a closing session, and you can ask all kinds of questions, and we'll be playing some games and doing some giveaways. And I think that's it. So if you have any other, well, Alan, are you on Facebook at all? Because you have to, if you're not on Facebook, you just need to RSVP to the Eventbrite that you RSVP to. There's like a whole list of them. I think that's how it would work, right, Jason?
That's right. I'm just going to share the link to the Eventbrite in the chat box now for everybody.
Right. So copy and paste that. Do you have any other questions at all, or you guys, you're all good?
I think there were a couple of questions that people left in a comment in the Facebook group that John said that maybe he could briefly answer. John, do you have those in front of you? Or I do, if you want me to.
Yeah, can you, shout them out, please, Wendy.
Yeah, well, the first one was about researching your ancestry if you were born in the UK. So I think that's probably something that they're just going to have to Google themselves.
Yeah, Yeah, just it's a job for Google, I'm afraid. I can't help with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
And the other one was someone who's looking for a self-catered trip where she books her own accommodation, and she wants help with picking an area that has easy access to moderate coastal walks, vegan-friendly eating out options nearby, and itinerary planning.
Well, I'm biased, but Brighton ticks all those boxes. If they wanted to go a little bit further afield, then I'd say Dorset, South Devon would be good places to go as well. If they wanted really flat, now I'm not sure of the vegan options up there, but the Norfolk coast is quite stunning, and it's certainly not as hilly as the two places that I've mentioned. So that's worth a look. If they're online now, if they want to drop me an email at info@theveganworld.com, then we can carry the conversation on offline.
Great.
Well, I want to thank everyone. Are there any other questions, Wendy, before we leave? Is that it?
Those were the only two that I saw
Okay.
in the group earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, and we can answer them if they're on the Facebook page. I think you now have the Eventbrite link, so please respond to it for Thursdays and then next week's, whatever one you want to join us on, and please try and come for the closing session because it's going to be a lot of fun. And I really want to thank everyone. Let me just get out of the sharing here. I just want to thank everyone for joining us. It looks like I have a few of my clients here now that I can see. But I really enjoyed this, and we hope to see you guys on a trip, and we hope to see you next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Okay. Oh, some of my people are still here. Okay. Hi, Andrew.
I was just about to hit the leave button when you said hi, Andrew.
Yeah, good to see you guys. I hope you're going to join us to Ireland or Scotland this year.
Well, I hope so. Ireland was amazing. I still talk about it.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the trip, I had a tooth fall out, and it was still one of the best trips ever.
There you go. Well, tell Linda I said hi.
I'll do that.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. Yeah, it went off pretty smoothly. Bridie, are you there? Are you sleeping? Wait, Jason, you're muted.
You're live recording still.
Oh, sorry.